Waiting on YouTube, as always. Hello, everybody. Let me get my computer all set up here. Yes, the meeting is being live streamed. Yeah. Hello, everybody. And my camera is decided it's going to act up. What's up with that, right? Okay. Hello, Lori. How are you today? There's a new message on here, and I'm like, what is that message? So I had to stop and read it. All right, let me look at the camera, put the chat over here in front of me so I can see it. How are you guys today? It is Thursday. Everybody in a good mood? I hope so, because I am. Let's see, working on the heart block today. I got fabric in for our March 4th International Sewing Bee. I can't wait for that. I'll show you guys the fabric. And later on in the live, we will put the link in for the Shamrock Table Runner from Quilting with Stephanie Stitches. That's what we're going to be doing. Hi, Marie. Hello. How are you today? Yeah, I know the 7 o'clock live on Monday night's a little bit hard for some people to make, but it seems to work out better as far as having fewer internet issues for me. So I am, and my ear is going to itch because I'm live. Or that's my right ear. That means somebody's talking about me, right? Or is that your palms? I can never remember. But what I've got going on today, ooh, snow. I don't like snow. Is this, I'm trying to get it to where you guys can see it. This is the Sweetheart block, and it's based on, it's not exact, it's based on the Heart quilt block in the Quilt Builder card deck. What we're going to do on Thursdays is I'm going to do those blocks my way. They're loosely based on it, so I definitely wanted to give credit to CNT Publishing. They printed the Quilt Builder card deck 1 in 2018, so it's copyrighted by them. So I can't use any of their graphics. Hey, Tracy. I can't use any of their graphics or anything, but I want to make sure I still give credit to them, because if you want to be able to make these blocks, that's the place to go get them. And I'm putting up after the live my little drawn out thing that I did with crayons, and but I figure that way you guys can see how to construct the block. If someone's working with that Quilt Builder card deck, it'll be tagged so that they can find it later on down the road. Because I worked as a charity quilt, and when I found out, what blocks I had, I was like, okay, let's go see, because there's not very many instructions on these blocks. There's just a card with these are the things you need to cut and a picture of the block. So you don't get any instructions for how to put it together. So how to put it together is completely my invention. That's not the right word. My way of putting it together. Oh, okay, Marie, I understand. I don't like cold. I don't like snow. I'm glad you like it in Wisconsin. And then I have already made one of these blocks. So I'm going to show that to you guys. I've made it. I ironed it, but it looks like my iron, I pressed one of the things the wrong direction. But I've made one, and I kept my fabrics out so I could tell you guys what fabrics I used. The purple is designed and produced exclusively for Joann's. I'm betting I bought it 10 or 12 years ago. I don't know if this fabric is still available. Hello, Colleen. How are you today? And let's see if there's even a selvage left on this one, or if there's anything printed on it. This is, and I know that it doesn't, show well. It's a white, there you go, in the shadow. It's a white on white. Oh, it's a white on white. It's little flowers on a kind of creamy background. And I think I bought that from Marshall Dry Goods. I bought a whole bolt of it. Oh, yeah, I bought a whole bolt of it and I'm working my way through. It makes a great background fabric for anything. I used blue on the Scotty dogs, but I wanted to use this white on this. So what I've done already is I've already cut my pieces and I'm going to give you guys an idea. Let me change cameras so you can see it. Yeah, isn't it pretty? I have two cameras set up. I'm hoping that I don't have to move the camera on you guys while I'm doing this today. And I've got my trusty little ruler here. But here's my block. And what I did was I cut everything out and I laid it on my design board. These two pieces don't have to have anything done to them. So I'm going to sew the little pieces up. This is the fastest block in the world. This is a 6-inch square. I have pinned a piece of background and a piece of color. I'm going to sew down either side of this and then cut it in half. And last week when I was watching back my live, was like, you know, these people actually do know how to sew. They don't necessarily need to see how I sew all this stuff. I'm explaining it for beginners. If you're a beginner and you need more details on how to sew this, I do have other videos on how to get, that get close up on how to sew things. And I will be happy to do that. But on the live, it just means that I'm moving that camera around and I make poor Sherlock go wee all the time. I give her vertigo and we don't want to do that. So now I have sewn that block and I know you can't see the thread. How are you? And here is, yeah, you guys can see that. What I'm doing now is I'm just going to cut down the line I marked. And for those who don't already know, I just used a friction pin to make that mark on there. So when I iron this block, it will disappear. But with where the mark is, it's basically I cut right on the mark. It's not going to show in my seam. So we're going to put those over to the side for a minute. And then what I've got here is I have two pieces that need to be turned into flying geese. And I always have to double check myself on that because I want to make sure that the right side of the white fabric is against the right side of the purple. So I cut mine a little bit bigger than what I actually need. And I'm going to go ahead and sew a 1/4 inch seam down each side. And you don't want to pull on this because this is a bias seam and it will stretch very easily. So I'm just going to put this under here, do my 1/4 inch seam. And I'm going to sew them back to back. If anybody's here today that needs to see more up close sewing, say something in the chat and I will move it closer. But I will only do that if you guys need me to. Because I'm trying not to give the vertigo. I get seasick myself. All right, so now that I've sewn those two, I'm actually pressing back on the white side. And I'm not pressing, I'm just kind of rolling it over and laying it down. Still making sure I'm in camera view for you. Putting Brenda's quilt together. Oh, awesome. That means you've gotten a lot of work done on it because the last time I knew you were still making blocks. You were still hand embroidering blocks for Brenda's quilt. And just in case, what I'm doing is I'm kind of lining this up halfway-ish on this so I get my point of my flying goose there and making sure that everything stays lined up. My pieces are bigger than I need. So when you look at my cutting diagram, when I put it up on the community tab, and I'll show it in the chat as well, or on camera. When you look at my cutting diagram, I do have a little bit of waste on this, but with these blocks, I'm wanting to make sure that I get the size I need out of it. So I'm trying to make absolutely certain that I have a little extra wiggle room if I need it. And this is literally, unless you're doing a 9 patch, this is the fastest block in this box. And the 9 patches, I'm like, why do you even need a quilt block or a card block for that? All right, so now I've got them both sewn. I'm just going to press them back a little bit. So those two are done. I'm going to press back. I'm just finger pressing, but I am going to use heat. I got to make sure my iron is still on. It was hot because I was making that other block right before I went live. And I'm doing 2 of each of them because that's what I want to do. They're all going in a quilt at some point. So I'm just going to put everything down here on my little ironing mat. Thank goodness for these small ironing mats because they are portable. And I have my design boards underneath there. Some of you may see that. And right on that one, you can see the 6.5 is still showing. And I want the purple to go that way. All right. Oh, thank you, Colleen. They are definitely a pinky color. All right, and so I'm not pressing super hard, and I am trying to press with the grain of the fabric. So up and down instead of side to side. Okay. And then all of these come back off of the ironing mat because I need to do some squaring up. And we'll get the ironing board is great for more than just you put your quilts together. I'm loving this one because I've got it set up here so I can use it as an extra work surface. And then I have my square up ruler out here. And I need my 2 flying geese to be the same size as this piece here. This piece is 3 inches tall by 5.5 inches wide. So I want to use my square up ruler here to make the exact same size, because that's how you get your block to all match up. So 3 inches tall by 5.5 inches. So see all this little fiddly stuff over here on the side? I'm not worried about it. And that's off. And then I'm just going to turn it around, double check my measurement. I need 5.5 inches wide by 3 inches tall. I'm a little tiny bit out over here on this one side, but it's in the seam allowance. It's less than 1/4 of an inch. So I am not remaking that block. So that one's ready. Going to do the same thing to this one. Again, 3 inches tall by 5.5 inches wide. And the point of this is that you don't have to have a specialty ruler to do everything. I have a lot of specialty rulers. I've got a notebook up there on my shelf that's full of them, but you don't have to have a specialty ruler for everything. And then let me take a peek at the chat. Yeah, I agree with you, Tracy. I like the 9-patch heart myself too, but this is in the card deck and the 9-patch heart is not. So, and then these need to be 5.5 and 5.5. So they need to be square. And I cut this at 6 inches and then I put it around. So all I'm doing is I'm using my little square and I'm lining everything up so I get 5.5 by 5.5. Going to trim it down, and I've got a piece of tape running along the 45, so I know that that's right along that 45. So I'm not going to end up with a wonky block out of this. It's still going to have that 45-degree angle, which is what this block requires. And then I'm just going to turn it around, and I'm going to make sure that I've got all the little edges off. And this is super simple. I mean, none of this is hard, especially on this block. Got a couple of more challenging ones coming up. I thought we'd start off with the easy one. Hello, Marianne. How are you today? On my agenda of things to do today, I was thinking about you earlier, Marianne, because I'm working on curtains for my kitchen. This one's actually pretty close to the 5.5. So basically all I'm doing on this one is I am cutting off dog ears. But I still want to double check it, make sure that everything's cool. All right. And I'm not watching the chat real closely yet, sorry. This block is so easy. I was like, let's just put this together. So I'm going to lay it out the way it's supposed to go together. And anybody else like, yeah, this was too easy? Well, it's too easy, but I managed to turn one of these upside down when I was doing this earlier. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take, you guys can see that, okay. So I'm going to take my 2 flying geese and I'm going to make sure that the points match, and then I'm just going to sew it. Quarter-inch seam, and you need to pay attention to quarter-inch seam right there. That's the most important part of the block. I'm going to do the center. I know I'm kind of at the far edge of the screen, but you can still get the idea of what I'm doing, which is good. And then on this one, I'm going to make sure not that the top matches, but the 2 bottom points match. Because I want it to look like a heart when I'm done. All right. And I am not cutting these apart. What I'm going to do is opposite directions as I open this. And I learned to do blocks and columns from Valerie Nesbitt. She's a British teacher, and I still didn't get my points matched up. I'm not going to fight with it. So that now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 2 center pieces and I'm going to nest them so that the 2 seams meet, match my edges, and it's all still attached. Take it back over to my sewing machine. And I'm making sure that that center stays together. And for me, my fingers work better than pens. other thing is that centerpiece is just a hair longer than the top piece there. So I made sure that centerpiece was on the bottom because the feed dogs will even it out. And so now we're going to bring it here. I'm going to unfold it, finger press it back. There's the top of my heart. And then I'm going to bring it here. I'm going to match my edge. And then my two center seams so that they are nested together. I've caught a few people saying something other than nested there. So I'm like, is nested a copyrighted word and I need to not use it? And I'll show you in just a minute. My points aren't perfect, but they're pretty close. And by the time I put it in a quilt and get everything put together, you're not going to be able to see it. And as I always say, if anybody's looking at your work that close, tell them to go home. I don't care who it is. If it's your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, or your sister. Okay, so here's our block. It's all put together. And I'm going to put it over here on. Uh-oh. Dawn, you're sick or you're not feeling well? Did you get injured? I'm going to put it over here on the ironing board real quick and give it some heat. And then I'll bring it back over so you guys can see it. And that, my friends, is the sweetheart block. So I have two now for my quilt, or for whatever quilt it's going to end up in. And I now have two design boards free so that I can do something else on them. And as you can see, my points aren't perfect there. I think that's the first one I made, and this is the second. But I think they came out really cute. I like the color. If you wanted to make a heart quilt, this is a 10.5-inch block. If you wanted to make a heart quilt for someone, you could do the same background all the way across and then do different colors of fabric, whatever you want to do. And then here, not sure you guys are going to be able to read that. No, picture stinks. So let me change cameras here again. And I don't have to move cameras or do anything funky anymore, or today, because I think I figured out something on it. Yeah, humans are imperfect. If you want perfect, that's fine. I mean, you should make your quilts however you want to make them. But for me, I'm not selling quilts, number one, and I'm not making quilts to go in quilt shows. I'm making quilts for grandkids, for kids, for friends and family, for people who don't know the difference between my quilt and a show quality quilt and probably wouldn't care. And I make quilts practical. I'm practical, guys. That's what that means. I make quilts because I want them to be used. You know, I've sent quilts to cousins and grandkids, and the worst thing for me is when you take a quilt, oh, Granny made this, so you put it up and you don't use it. Well, that wasn't the point of the quilt. The point of the quilt was I want you to have, you know, a little hug from me, or a little, oh, Granny loves me, she made this for me. So if I'm making you a quilt, I want you to use it. If it's something that's not for use, I probably am not giving it away. I've made a couple of big applique quilts. I made Lori Holt's Vintage Housewife, and I made Lisa Capen's Happiness is Homemade. And neither one of those gets used. They were made specifically because I wanted them, and I like looking at them. I pull them out occasionally. I look at them. I fondle them. pet the quilt, and then I go, oh, and I put it back up. But I made those for me, and I knew that they were being made for me to just look at. It wasn't intended to go to anybody. What happens to it after I pass is up to my grandkids. Well, yeah, but you can't always keep your treasures all pretty. Some are made for that, and that's perfectly acceptable if that is how you want to do things. But that's not what I do. I've been making I make scrap quilt blocks, I make, whatever. And then I will gather up all the scrap quilt blocks I have in my room, whether they go together, whether they match, whatever, and I'll put them into a quilt because someone needs a quilt. And I've made some for the sheriff's department to give to people like after house fires and stuff. And I don't think that the people who are getting those quilts, especially after a disaster, are really looking at, do these fabrics match or whatever. They're looking at, does this quilt keep me warm? Does it make me feel safe and loved? And my quilts, I have quilts from my grandmother. And when I get under one of those quilts, because I still use them, I've repaired a few. Um, I feel my grandmother and my uncles and my mom, because when my granny was, having kids, she had 10 kids and she was dirt poor. So she would make quilts out of whole cloth, and then the kids and then the grandkids would sit and tie them by hand with yarn. Oh, one of those. One of those, Dawn. Yes. Hello, Sylvia. Okay, now that Sylvia's here, I can talk about her. Oh, yes, Dawn, I will definitely say it. If you're criticizing someone else's work, you need to go home. Um, your little friend who thinks he knows everything, that's a stage they go through. um, but if he can make one better and do better quilting, have at it. Wonky quilting. Let's talk about wonky quilting. I wasn't going to show this till closer to the end, but I brought it in here because I need to trim it. But I quilted the Scotty dogs, and I just literally did a meander all over it. The Scotty dogs are not a pretty quilt. The Scotty dogs are a utility quilt. I have a pretty good guess which grandkid is going to take this. So I need to, trim off my edges and I need to bind it. So that's why it's in here, because that's my next two steps. But I didn't get fancy dancy on this. I literally did what I call a loopy meander. And I have fancier stitches that I can do. I know how to do fancier stitches, and I can do swirls and loops and feathers. I'm not great at any of it, but I can do other than that. But I was like, I'm going to be giving this to one of the grandsons. He's going to drag it from pillar to post, and he's going to use it to cuddle up under, to snuggle with. He's probably going to sit there and try to read the dog's names, all that stuff. So he can have at it. He can play with that quilt. It's made from scraps, literally. The dogs are made from doggone it fabric for the most part. There's a little bit of Lori Holt scraps tossed in there. And the background is sheet. The blocks that I put it on, they were cut from a sheet. The back of it is a sheet. What I have in that quilt is time, love, and maybe $5 of fabric and another $5 of $10 of batting. So it's a cheap quilt, but it was made specifically to be used and to be loved and to be hauled around. And when I did my quilting, I did meander over the dogs. The only thing I didn't go over was the names, because they're definitely sewn in there very well. But I meandered over the dogs so that it would help hold the applique down. And if it gets ruined, whatever. But I will be filming a video about, trimming it up in my small space, because that seems to be one of the things that people have issues with, and how to bind it. But it's just a cute little quilt. It wasn't made to be put up and saved. That's not what it's for. Yeah. Oh, that's horrible, Colleen. If I thought about that, they'd have been named ABC. What wouldn't stop me, Sylvia? Colleen, you would not stir the pot, would you? Never, never, not Colleen. Okay, so the reason that I was so happy to see Sylvia and what I'm going to talk about her with is the Japanese quilt blocks. She made that Japanese quilt. She did the kimono, the flared kimono, the lantern, all of those gorgeous blocks. The lotus block, and I have mine here because I set them out specifically because I knew I was going to talk about this. This is my attempt at FPP from Sylvia's pattern. It's not bad. It's growing on me. I mean, I know my colors are in the wrong places and it's not correct, but I made it. I'm happy I made it. And this is my pieced block where I created a pieced block from Sylvia's pattern because the paper to me just makes my brain hurt. It just doesn't work for me. And then this is the one that I did on, I want to say Monday Night's Live. Is that right? And I got my colors in the right place. It looks a little better than this one. Practice makes perfect. These are both pieced. But Sylvia has done all of these patterns in foundation paper piecing. And I have tomorrow's iris block printed out here. That's the next, well, second to next project that I'm going to work on today off camera. But if you want to make the Japanese quilt that Sylvia made, her patterns are no longer free. You will need to go to Sylvia via email and ask her, and she will send you a PayPal invoice for the patterns. I don't know what the cost is because there's so many different countries here, and Sylvia's in the UK. It's whatever the UK price turns into for your particular country. Because I know there's Australians and I know there's people in the UK and Canada and the US who all watch. So if you're interested, Sylvia's email is sylviaback6@gmail.com. And I did do a visual. Hopefully you can read that. sylviaback6@gmail.com. So if you want those patterns, you need to send Sylvia an email and she will send you an invoice via PayPal, and that will do all of the currency conversions and all of that stuff for you. Make sure. Hey, I have a list that I'm working down here, Colleen. The rest of that is my list of things I want to make sure I talk about. So give Sylvia an email if you want those patterns. I'm assuming, I may be wrong, that you can buy all of the patterns for one price. I don't know that. Sylvia can tell you. Or if you just want to buy like one pattern, I'm sure Sylvia would work out something for you. Like if you wanted to make a whole quilt out of lotus blocks or something. And if you want to make a piece lotus block, I put it in the community tab after the live when I did the lotus block, which I think was Monday. I'm lost. So definitely go look there. But Sylvia is selling her patterns. Sylvia makes tons of patterns for people for free. She's, not monetized yet and definitely not making any money off YouTube. So the little bit she charges for patterns supports her fabric habit and gives the rest of and supports, the time she takes and spends to do this. And since her doggo got sick yesterday, she may need to take him to the vet. So you definitely need to buy Sylvia's patterns so she has money to take the doggo to the vet. So not thought about a price for all of them, but they're not expensive. I think normally when I have seen it, like when Lisa Capon was doing all of hers for the Happiness is Homemade quilts, I think they were a dollar or $1.50 for each of the blocks. Say that there were 12 or 15 blocks, and then she sold all of the patterns together, like as one just paper pattern, or downloadable paper pattern, for like 15. And then if you wanted the SVGs, they added some price to it, maybe $1 per SVG, so that you could cut it on your Cricut or whatever. I don't think Sylvia's making SVGs of her patterns, so she's just giving you a downloadable version. But you know, you guys can work that price out with Sylvia. I'm not trying to set her prices at all. So yeah, if you want those patterns, definitely go see Sylvia. All right, now we're to the fun part. I made the block. We sewed the block. I talked about everybody. Well, not quite. I didn't talk about subscriber counts, 764 and 680 for my two besties there. Colleen's at 764. Sylvia's at 680. And they are both very, very, very close to being monetized, which I'm happy for. And I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm like, yes, go girls. You go. Okay, so mail call. I got fabric. Y'all recognize the theme on this fabric? This is all St. Patty's Day fabric, and I have leprechauns. Let's do a fabric show here. I don't know if I can do this so you guys can see it easily. Let's see. Oh, I can switch back to the other camera. Go, Melissa. Somebody tell me this stuff. Remind me. There we go. All right, so now you can see it up close and pretty. So this is leprechauns and coins, or hats and coins. This is beer and green and yellow and red rainbows. Shamrocks and little hats. And they've got green shamrocks and yellow shamrocks. And that looks like a striped sock on a foot. Oh, that's cute. Making sure I missed anything in chat. There's more colors in here than I thought. Green and a black stripe. That's really cute. I like that. More shamrocks. Green and green stripes. That's like a gingham. More shamrocks in a different colorway. So I got what, 10 fabrics. And we are going to be doing on the March 4th International Sewing Bee. Let me come back up here. Hello, Lynn. How are you today? On the March 4th Sewing Bee, we are going to be making Stephanie's Stitches Shamrock Table Runner. And the pattern is very inexpensive if you want to sew along. It is available through Stephanie's Supply Shop on Etsy. It's like $5 for a PDF version. I've printed mine out, but I didn't print out the front page of it, apparently. I was hoping to have printed out the front page so that I could show it to you guys. Let's see if it's in this pile of stuff. I don't think it is. No, it didn't. But it's 4 shamrocks around the centerpiece. It's bound in quilt. I think it comes out 24 by 24. So it's a small project, easy to do in an hour to an hour and a half at most. Exactly, Dawn. Exactly. Thank you, Colleen. I appreciate that. I messaged her before the live and asked her if she would please put Stephanie's link in there for this pattern. If you're interested, if you're interested at all, um, please go over there, follow that link, buy the pattern from Stephanie. She's another small business owner, not doing, crazy things. And she's trying to support her family. And, the pattern's not expensive. Like I said, $5. I think it's well written, especially since I have been writing some patterns myself here lately. It's a whole lot harder than I thought it would be to write patterns down, especially when they're coming out of your head and you're trying to put them on paper. It's really easy to make something because you know how to make it, but it's a whole lot harder to put it down on paper so that the average quilter who doesn't necessarily have as much experience with like half square triangles or something a little more complicated can do it. So, let's all support Stephanie. If you don't want to buy that pattern and you want to do something else on St. Patty's Day, that's fine too. We're going to do this on March 4th, so it will be ready to put up for St. Patrick's Day in your house decor if you want to do that. And I think that Dawn may be doing a different project, but I know that Colleen, Sylvia, and I have all decided we're going to do it. So I'm looking forward to that. I like sewing with my friends and chit-chatting. And if you haven't been to one of our lives yet, you need to come because they are fun. They're a load of fun. Pattern writing is hard. Oh, I think in the UK they do appointments on Saturdays. Right, exactly. So, Dawn, you need a balance of both. You've got to have some longer videos so that you get the watch time, or you have to get 10 million views on shorts. And believe me, that's hard to do. You have to get 10 million views on shorts in 3 months. And I've been getting incredible numbers of views, but I haven't even hit 1 million views overall yet. Although I'm very, very, very close according to my analytics. So it's harder to get the 10 million views than it is to get the subscribers and the watch hours. Oh, that'll be very cool, Sylvia. I love it. Yeah, pattern writing is hard. I have, uh, we won't even go there. I've been trying to write a pattern for the little ironing case I made. Excuse me, guys. Clear my throat there. I've been trying to write a pattern for the little iron case I made. And every time I write it, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And I sent it to somebody and had them read it, and they came back with, what? So, yeah, it's a lot tougher than it looks to write patterns, even quote unquote simple patterns. For, what I wrote down today, I kind of just, I was sitting here going, well, how do I tell people do this, do that, do the other? And I thought they're going to have to work off the visual cues because I don't know how else to do that. So that was all of my thought process on that. And let's see, what else have we got going on, Colleen? I didn't see angels, shamrocks. Sorry. Yeah, the link is up there if you want to, Lynn. I know it's different for the UK pricing. Um, and Stephanie has been very generous with us to allow us to do it on the live because, she doesn't have to do that. It's not a requirement for her to offer or allow us to take her copyrighted pattern and then show it on the live, even if we aren't quote unquote teaching it. So it's very nice of her to let us do that, and I appreciate it. Yeah, the FPP ones I imagine would be way harder. I looked at the 7 pages that printed out for the block for tomorrow. I'm intimidated. I'm really intimidated by that. And I'm a bag maker. I don't intimidate easily when it comes to things. So I'm like, okay. And I'm looking at it going, I don't know what I'm doing here. So you guys can laugh at me tomorrow. I'm glad Sylvia is going to teach it, and I'm glad that she's going to walk us through how to do it. But, even with her teaching the lotus block, I made it look pretty different. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it'll be easy. You make it easy. Wow, Tracy's just killing it over there. It's 6 pounds. I'm sure that you probably can, Lynn. You may have to send her an email from her shop page for that. So, she can work that out for you. Um, I sent her an email and she answered me very quickly, but I do know that she was going to the Soyak quilting retreat this weekend. I know she's going to Halifax soon as well. So she was going to a quilt something this weekend. So it may take her a minute or two to get back to you. But I'm sure she can work something out with you, Lynn. I actually emailed her because I was gonna find out if there was a way for me to pay for a pattern for someone else and then her email it to them so that, she didn't give away a copy of the pattern. And she answered me, like I said, within just a few minutes. So, yeah, I'm sure she'll take care of you. Okay, I think that I have covered everything, which just blows my mind because we're only 45 minutes in, but I don't like to go over an hour. Are there any questions for anybody that I can answer? And I have a question. Tracy W., are you still here? I just wanted to see if there was any more news on Mom and Pop because I know that they've canceled a couple of lives. And I don't want to get intrusive. Just wanted to ask if there's more information or if everything is, still kind of up in the air. Yeah, you could do that. I think you can check out as a guest through PayPal. I didn't think of that, Lori. See, that's why I have mods to think for me. Anyway, like I said, not trying to be intrusive on their business. Just wondered if there was more information because I know that, it's just they didn't want to have to answer everybody and their uncle. Helly posted yesterday that they were okay, but there was stuff going on, which is fine. Aw, that's not good, Tracy. Well, I wouldn't want to have to deal with that. Yeah, I consider Laura Lynn and Kent and Marcus friends, but I was kind of like, yeah, maybe not good enough to, be able to pick up the phone and text. But I'm glad you did. Thank you. Yeah, definitely praying for Mom, hoping she feels better soon. Um, good, good. I'm glad you spoke to her. She's lost a lot of weight recently, so maybe that's contributing, but hopefully everything will be okay. Tracy, I definitely sympathize with her on that. My gallbladder did that before I finally had it taken out. So we appreciate the update. Like I said, not trying to be intrusive. Mom, if you're watching this or watching it later, we are praying for you. I hope you feel better soon and they figure out what the issue is so that you can get back to normal life. So, yeah, I'm sure she is, Sylvia. I'm sure she is. Okay, well, I think that's everything. We've gossiped about poor Mom and Pop. Sorry, Mom. And we made the heart block. I'm going to put up the picture of what I did, what I cut, and how I cut it on my community tab here in a couple of minutes. I will, hopefully, Colleen will email me the link that she just put in for Stephanie, and I'll put that in the description box for this live so that if you want to buy the Shamrock, let me say it right, Shamrock Table Runner pattern, you can just hit the link in the description box and go to Stephanie's shop and buy it. Like I said, it's only $5 US. Maybe a little bit different for Canada and the UK or Australia if you're watching this from Australia. But that's what we're going to be working on March 4th at the International Sewing Bee. And I hope you guys will all be there. It looks like it's going to be a ton of fun. And so far, we have a couple of extra people who've said, yes, they're going to be joining us. I'm not going to give away the surprise right now. You'll have to find out on the day of the sewing bee. We might put it up the day before. But so far, we've got a couple of people joining us, and I think it'll be a blast. It always is. You guys have a great day. Let's see. Colleen says, kindness is contagious. Be the light you want to see in others. Sylvia says, be kind to others, not because they're kind, but because you are. And I say, if somebody's looking that close at your stuff, tell them to go home. Y'all have a great day and thank you for watching.